To maximize repeatability, you need a bench that's not going to move, and then you need to anchor the rest securely to the bench. First thing to do, using these two tabs in the front, is to run 2 screws into the bench top to secure the front of the rest. Put an additional screw through the bench grip arm to anchor the center of the rest. If you're still not getting the degree of repeatability that you think you should be getting, then you need to drill a hole through the rear of the rest. You can drill a hole either from the top down or from the bottom up, whichever is easier. And the hole has to be off center, one side to the other, because there's a support piece welded inside the tube. Then you can anchor the rear of the rest. In any event, try to use screws that closely match the diameter of the hole so the rest doesn't shift around. Install the medium damper. Put some grease on the shaft of the damper. Fire your gun. If the grease residue ring is only an inch, inch and a half, or 2 inches down the shaft of the damper, switch to the lightest damper, as that will be adequate for the gun that you're firing. If the grease ring on the medium damper ends up all the way at the end of the shaft, you're probably shooting a big gun with heavy recoil, and it'd be necessary to shift to the heavy damper. In order for the dampers to properly fit over their mounting studs, it's necessary for the eye ends of the damper to be parallel and in alignment. If they're not, you can use pliers or screwdrivers and gently twist back into alignment. For rimfires and light recoiling guns, remove the center or operational damper. The carrier that supports the gun has sufficient mass to absorb recoil from those guns. When the gun fires, the carrier will move back with the gun. However, after each shot, it's necessary to manually push the carrier and the gun forward to return the gun to battery. If you feel that you need recoil resistance somewhere in between no damper and the light damper, Hyskore has spring packs available for purchase. To install these coil springs, undo the lock nuts right here in the shaft, install the spring, and reinstall the lock nut. The springs will allow you to have resistance of between 2 and 8 pounds per inch of travel. Now, with the damper removed and the 2 blue springs installed, this is the way a 223 will run. If you'd like to order the spring pack, it's Hyskore part number 30080-10. It consists of 6 springs. 2 yellow springs, each with 2 pounds resistance per inch of travel. 2 blue springs, each with 4 pounds resistance per inch of travel. And 2 shorter red springs, each also with 4 pounds resistance per inch of travel. To keep things from binding and running smoothly, occasionally lubricate all of the screw threads with acid-free machine oil. This happens to be Singer sewing machine oil, and it works extremely well. In order to eliminate any mechanical movement in the mechanism of the rest, there are adjustments at the rear of the rest. These adjustments will remove any excess play. To make the adjustment to remove play, first thread a nut onto the bolt, thread it into the fitting on the sleeve until it bottoms, back it off a quarter of a turn, then use a wrench to tighten the nut. If you're not getting the consistency and grouping that you think you should be getting, it's time to look for other problems that may exist. The first place to look is the scope and its mountings. If you're using a Schmidt & Bender, a Kales, or a Loophole, you're probably not going to have a problem with the scope. If you're using a $20 import scope, it's not uncommon for the reticles to shift and or freeze up. This, of course, will have a big influence on how your groups position themselves. If your mounts are loose or are binding the tube of the scope, this could also create issues with accuracy and consistency. A frequently overlooked factor that affects consistency and group size is twist rate. Longer bullets require a faster twist. For instance, Remington currently loads .30-06 ammunition starting at 125 grains and ending up at 220 grains. Given the same raw material for the bullet and the same diameter, needless to say, the 220 grain bullet is longer than the 125 grain bullet, therefore requires a faster twist rate. The 5.56 or 223 Remington is another good example of a popular caliber where you need to pay close attention to twist rate. 60 and lighter grain bullets will stabilize and group well from a 1 in 10 or 1 in 11 twist barrel. On the other hand, bullets heavier than 60 grains require a 1 in 8 or a 1 in 9 twist barrel. The gun and or ammunition manufacturer should be able to tell you which bullet weight and twist rate matchup will give you the most consistency and accuracy. The two knobs that hold the V-notch in place tend to loosen up under use. Check them frequently, because if they're loose, they're going to open up the group and you're going to lose consistency. Get 1 or 2 lock washers, put them underneath, and then secure. The rest is supplied with a foam V-block for use with guns that have wide forends. For guns with narrow or standard size forends, do not use the V-block as it will allow too much side play. If the rest binds, runs slow, or fails to make a full return to battery, the most probable cause is dirt or contamination buildup, or even excess finish that's been applied at the factory on the guide rods that the upper carrier rides on. To solve the problem, clean them off with solvent, take some plumber's emery, polish them up, and then use some acid-free machine oil or light grease to lubricate. Without the bench grip arm in place, the rest is 29 inches long by 16.5 inches wide.